Hello and welcome to The Unconventional Path, or should I say, our new title, Entrepreneurship via the Unconventional Path. It's been a while since Mike and I have put together a new podcast or a new episode. You know, we produced almost 130 of them. We talked to a lot of individuals, and we've been scratching our heads and trying to figure out what can we do next. Because we really felt that we really weren't coming up with any new ideas. The guests kind of start sounding repetitive to us. So we took a pause and we've been scratching our heads. And you know, Mike and I actually started another podcast. It's all about sailing. And the name of that podcast is Sailing the East. And that's gotten pretty successful. We have almost 30 episodes out there. And if you like boating and sailing, tune it in and give it a listen. You can find it in your favorite podcasting app. In this episode is a little bit of an insight into sort of the conversations that Mike and I have that oftentimes do not get recorded, but at least they're interesting to us. And in this episode, you're going to hear Mike and I talk a little bit about fishing, elections in Germany, and how the German system is sort of different than the United States system. We're going to talk about COVID. We sort of update each other as to what's going on with COVID. And so it's not the typical podcast. Oh, and the other thing we talk about is we talk a little bit about the future and some of the things we're thinking about for podcast episodes and podcast series going forward. So I hope you like it. We certainly like doing these. And I hope you guys will give us some feedback as to how you think it went. And of course, the best way to give us feedback is via email, and that's at bela.and.mike@gmail.com. So give it a listen. Hope you like it, and let us know what you think. So let's dive right into the episode now.
Bela, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Long time no see. What have you been up to?
Well, let's see. I've been fishing. Went fishing yesterday. Been doing a fair amount of that, and going to the boat tomorrow.
Nice. Are the fish biting for you?
Not as well as in the early part of the season, but I always catch a few, so it's good.
And isn't that typical with fly fishing, right? That in the spring the fish are more active. They're coming out of whatever hibernation. You know me, I'm not a fisherman either. But isn't it better in the beginning of the summer? And they're just kind of like me, fat and lazy and stupid at the end of the summer?
I think the reason I catch more in the spring is because the truck from the stocking factory comes and dumps a ton of fish into the streams. So there's just a lot of fish in there. And I think as the year goes on, a fair number of people take fish out. I don't keep any. I throw them back. But a lot of people take them, which is great. And because I think they put too many fish in there for the stream to actually sustain that population. And
somebody's got to eat.
Yeah, and then they also disperse as the season goes along. So they're not hanging out at all the places where the stocking truck dumped them in. And so I think the population per square mile goes down as the season progresses. But they also say that when it's starting to get fall time here, the fish start eating more because they realize that winter's coming and there's going to be less food. However, I'm not sure the fish that came from the stocking factory understand that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Like birds. I notice the birds do the same thing on my bird feeder, right? I mean, I'm not a genius, but they eat more and they get fat for winter.
Right. Because they know it's going to be some lean time. But anyway, if I catch 3 fish, which is the number I caught yesterday, I'm a happy camper. That's a good day for me. I had some days in the spring where I caught 8 or 9 or 10. Those are like unprecedented days, but that's all good.
Do you take pictures of them?
If I catch a picture-worthy fish, yes. Mm-hmm. If I catch something that's sort of large or unusual, it's interesting. There's all these stories about conservation and invasive species and the such. And I've come to the conclusion that invasive species, we're very selective about them. So, for example, brown trout, there's basically three types of trout in the United States. There's rainbows, brookies, and browns. And brook trout are native. There was some here back in the old days. I believe rainbows are also, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But brown trout were introduced from Europe. And so they're very invasive. I mean, they're very aggressive. They tend to, like some of these streams I fish, where I was fishing yesterday, the Batten Kill, it's all brown trout. There's no other fish in the river. That's it. You don't catch sunfish. You don't catch rainbow trout. You don't catch. I mean, there's little minnows in there, but that's it. So they're very invasive. But that's an interesting in that invasive species we like and we support, and it's all great. But there's other invasive species sometimes that are native to the region, but because of changes in climate or whatever, are now migrating into different parts of the region, and we're all against those. So it's this interesting sort of dichotomy of, well, yeah, some invasive species are okay because we like them. It's the same thing with flowers and plants and stuff, right? I mean,
Right.
It's the same idea. Is it like that in Germany?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm an indoorsman, Bela, so I don't spend a lot of time outdoors. I read a lot.
Yeah,
but,
I'm just wondering about the whole invasive thing.
Yeah, I think that these discussions take place. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that there's very strict rules about what plants and fish and things like this you can kind of import and export. And I know they're very careful, like the Bodensee, like Lake Constance. You have to, if you take the boat in or out, you have to get a special check.
Yeah.
If you move it out of the Bodensee, out of the Lake Constance, to make sure that there's nothing clinging to the boat, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I think we have less kind of wild and natural area, I think, per capita here.
Yeah.
It's it's a smaller country and it's pretty heavily industrialized, but of the wild and green spaces, there's a lot of rules and a lot of protection. So I would say yes, and I would say probably there's the same thing. There's certain invasive species that people have brought in that are good for tourism or industry or something like that, and those are allowed to stay, and others that hinder certain economic interests, right, are eradicated quickly.
Right, exactly. It's
so I think it's economics as much as it is biology or botany.
Right,
yeah?
Right. There's various different forces tugging on these things.
Yep.
So
it's all trade-offs. Nothing's easy or simple.
As there are with most issues. Yeah. What's going on?
So
go ahead.
I was gonna. Last time I talked to you, you'd canceled your trip with your son because the weather was going to be lousy. What's the latest?
Well, school has started for the grandkids, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a trip in here in the fall. This weekend, so I'm leaving tomorrow, which is Wednesday, heading out to the boat, and my niece is coming out on Saturday for a long weekend. So Elaine and I are going out tomorrow. We're going to hang out with the new granddaughter tomorrow night, help Andy with his house a little bit on Thursday and Friday, and then I think do some sailing Saturday and Sunday. Yeah.
Nice. What's the weather looking like this weekend?
It looks like the weekend's going to be good. Yeah, we've had a lot of rain this year. It's remarkable how wet this summer has been compared to other summers. So
yeah, which is probably better than drought. But
oh yeah, which has been good for fishing, right? The streams,
right.
The stream levels have been high almost all year, and they typically get really low this time of the year. So yeah, so that's the plan.
Do you have your appointment to get the boat hauled out yet?
Nope, I just got the paperwork yesterday, the forms to fill out for hauling the boat out. I think I'll haul it out towards the end of October. September can be a great skiing. I'm starting to think about skiing. Can be a great sailing month, as can early October. So, I think sometime third week of October is probably what I'm going to shoot for, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So that'll be good.
First full season.
Yeah, it's
First
been
full season under your belt.
First full season at the marina with the new boat under our belt, and it's been good. I'm very pleased. I'm getting more comfortable with the boat. I'm learning how to do things more and more each day, which is good. That's how it should be. Takes time. Takes time. So yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
And we should do an episode at the end to look at kind of what your expected costs were, both in money and time over the year versus what was realized, right? Or actual versus budgeted kind of, right? That would be interesting. I think a little kind of thumbnail analysis to do to see how this went according to what you were anticipating.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea, Mike. Yeah. If I reflect back on it here, the big hit was the air conditioner. Mm-hmm. That was the unexpected one. But yeah, it'd be interesting because I did make a budget before we bought the boat, and see what it would be like. See what the budget looked like to reality. Cool, good idea.
Yeah, everything is fine here. We've enjoyed a nice stretch of really beautiful weather, and it had been rainy a lot of the summer here too, interestingly. But the weather's been really nice, so a lot of people outdoors. We have big elections coming up a week from Sunday. Oh. So it's the September 26th. National elections, no local, just national.
So just like Merkel? Is this Merkel?
Yeah, so she's done. So she's been kind of doing her goodbye tour because she's been the face of German politics for a long time. So there'll be a new chancellor here no matter what.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of debates, very different than in the U.S. I don't know, I think I might have told you this, but the election, the advertising season is rigid, it's fixed. I think it's 6 weeks. You can't put any signs up or do any kind of advertising whatsoever until 6 weeks. I could be wrong on that, before the election. And there's no outside money or soft money involved. So the funding is public. So candidates, once they hit a threshold, they get money from the state, and there's a certain amount, and that's what they can spend, no more.
Can they put their own money in?
No, it's a state system.
Oh, wow. So it kind of levels the playing field.
So it totally levels the playing field. And there's, we have a big, thick, rich public broadcasting system here. That's another whole conversation, but we pay, each household has to pay a public broadcasting fee. Whether you like it or not, you cannot opt out, and that covers the radio and the regional TV and some other things related to public information. And so there's always debates on the TVs. Then they actually debate issues. Unlike, at least my reads in the last several presidential elections is the debates have kind of gotten less and less about issues and more about kind of capturing kind of zingers and sound bites to bring down the other person. Right?
Exactly.
And there's a little of that here, but there's a stark, and again, my German isn't so good. I've watched a few of these, but the tone and the type of language that's used is very, very different than in the U.S. debates. So that's been fascinating to watch. I can't vote. I'm not a citizen. But it's been fascinating to watch the elections and to see the signs. The signs that go up, there are a lot of signs. It's a big, there's one, big one strapped to the light pole right outside my apartment building, right? And then around the corner, there's like a park. And in this park, there's several big signs. And there's lots of signs with not just a slogan, but a position. So it's really interesting to see. And, there's several parties and it's parliamentary. So you can kind of see the positions pretty clearly of most of the parties just really on the signs. And then a lot of leaflets into your mailbox. People come door to door. There's a lot of actually, like now is national elections, so there's not of that. But in the local elections, you'll go to the grocery store and there will be the candidate wanting, answering questions and things like that. Very, very public, and lots of conversations. So fascinating differences in elections.
Yeah.
So that's always fun for me to see these differences.
Yeah, that is interesting. All the different systems throughout the world to elect the people who will govern you. Mm-hmm. Or I shouldn't say elect. I should use the word select. right? To select the person, because not all of them are elections.
Yeah, and like here, you don't elect the chancellor, so you elect the party, and then each party has a candidate that they're putting forward, but it's not a direct election. So you vote for the representatives to the party, and then it will most likely here be a coalition government. So you have to get a certain number to have control. I forget the number. I should know these things. But you have to have a certain number, and no one party will have that. So then they enter talks after the election. So even after the election, you don't know who the chancellor will be.
Oh.
So you'll know the votes of each of the parties, and then the parties will go into talks to build a coalition. And certain parties would never work together with other parties, but certain parties have a history of working together. Some candidates have already kind of staked a claim and said, I will not be the junior partner in a coalition. It's us, or I will go into opposition. So they decide to either join the coalition and share the power, or they don't join the coalition and they have to choose other parties, and then they go into opposition. And sometimes that's a stronger political position. So it's really fascinating, these machinations. And then as part of these talks, then that's where the chancellor gets decided. So it's not a direct vote by the people like we have.
Oh, sort of like getting the Pope.
It's like getting the Pope. Yeah. White smoke and black smoke.
Right. It's wow. Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought the chancellor, I keep calling him the prime minister, but the chancellor gets elected. But it's actually by the party.
Yeah.
It's like picking the speaker of the House or the majority leader in the Senate.
It's a parliamentary system, so you have to have enough support in the parliament, essentially, right, to support that candidate.
And there's more than two parties.
Oh yeah, there's I think 7 parties, and there's 5 major ones, and there's a lot. And they run the spectrum from far left to far right. But we, unlike the U.S., we have a strong center still. So there's center left and center right. So center right, Merkel is in the center right party. And so a little bit on the conservative side, although she herself has moved a little more liberal. And then their coalition partner right now, and traditional, they're the center left party. And then the Green Party is kind of the third big party now. And they've come out of nowhere, and they've moved toward the center from where they used to be. So there's these kind of left center, slightly left center, and right center. And those are the 3 dominant players. And then there's a far right called the AFD. And they're the hard right national party. And then there's 1 or 2 very small conservative parties. And then there's 2 or 3 kind of far left parties. So this will mix up. And each has a candidate for premier. And they're kind of like the point person, but they're not directly elected.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So we'll see on Sunday or Monday. We'll know the results of the which party has how many seats in the Bundestag in our Congress, and then from that, then they'll start coalition building, and it could take a day or it could take a month or whatever to figure out then what coalition agrees to lead and then who their party is. Because I think it can be too that even the coalitions might say, oh, okay, even the one with the most votes, there could be a situation where if they're in coalition with 2 governments, they agree to share power, but it's not that person in charge that becomes the premier. They become the number 2. It's not common, but I think it technically can happen.
Yeah. And is there one day to vote, or is voting spread out over a period of time?
So you can vote by mail, but there's one voting day across the whole country. So everything is shut down here on Sunday. Right? There's no retail open typically, except for gas stations and hotels and some restaurants and cafes. So they always vote on a Sunday here so that people have the day off. And I believe that there's lots of people that if you are working, you get paid time off to vote. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think that's the case here. So it's a fixed date, but you can mail in early. And you don't have to show, you get a ballot mailed to you. And you have to sign it, but there's no second registration step. So you have to register to live here. Like, you must register and you must have an ID card. All of that is required nationally. And you are automatically have the obligation and responsibility to vote. There's no penalty if you don't vote, but there's none of this, oh, did you register? It's like once you live here and you have to register and you have to have health insurance and you get a card and now you're voting. So there's this whole other layer that doesn't exist.
Right, but you need to be a citizen. You need to be a
US.
citizen. There's some requirements to be a citizen to vote.
You need to be a citizen.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what are those requirements? Do you know?
So for citizenship, you need to be a resident for, I think it's 7 years. And you need to have, again, proof of income and things like this. I can get it, I think, in 6 because I have a special kind of visa, work visa called the EU Blue Card, because of the nature of my job and my education and things like that. So I got a special deal. And I am eligible. Next time I have to go renew my visa, will have permanent residence. I mean, I could technically get it now, but they're only giving you an appointment when your appointment is due, and then they give it to you. But I've because of my job, met the requirements for being a permanent resident, which is like a green card in the U.S. And then I've been here now 3.5 years. So in another 2 years, I'll be able to take the citizenship test if I want to, and become a German citizen if I want to, and give up my U.S. citizenship. Technically, you're not supposed to have both. A lot of people do, but technically you're not supposed to. So I have to think that through. And that's complicated. If you're a citizen, it's very controversial. So if you're a citizen of the U.S. like I am, I must file U.S. taxes every year. Mm-hmm. Even if all my income is in Germany and it's exempt because there's a tax treaty, but it's really complicated. So it costs me some money. I have to have 2 tax preparers, one in Germany, one in the U.S. And figure out my taxes. And so there'd be a benefit if I gave up my citizenship, but then you can't go back.
Yeah.
You just as a tourist.
Yeah.
So it's a big decision. I haven't even come close to making it yet.
But that is that giving up that citizenship for the United States a German requirement or a U.S. requirement?
Both. So in the U.S., I think it's Ireland, and I think there's one other place where you're technically allowed to have dual citizenships. Okay, but it's just not enforced. So I'm pretty sure U.S. U.S. rules state that you should only have one citizenship.
I see.
Okay, unless you're in this special class of people. Okay, but generally you're supposed to give it up. But most people that I know don't. Right? They keep both passports.
Yes.
So it's like a don't ask, don't tell. And in Germany, it's the same.
Got it.
And every so often they kick up kind of, okay, we'll share the information, because they don't share the information. And so typically my friends with dual passports, you use the passport of the country that you're going into. So if I kept both passports, I would use my U.S. passport when I arrived in the U.S. And then when I was coming home, I'd use my Germany passport, my EU passport, to get back into Germany.
Right. Huh.
So we'll see.
Very interesting.
What else is on your mind? What's been interesting and thought-provoking in your world?
Not much else at all, Mike. You guys have started classes, haven't you?
No.
Oh, that's right. You got this weird calendar.
Yeah, we have the weird calendar. So we have orientation for our Masters in Digital Business and Innovation Management program that I help run. That starts in 2 weeks from today. So I'll be back in the classroom in 2 weeks, and we're going to try to do in presence. We're using what's called the 3G system here. So the 3 German words for that you either been immunized, which is geimpft, or that you've had a recent test, a certified test, not a home test, getestet. And then now I forget. And the third one is, or you've recovered, you've been certified that you've recovered from COVID in the last 6 months. Every student every day will have to show proof of one of those 3 things to get into the classroom, the building.
And what is proof? Is it some official government document or?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So for immunizations, we have official certificates. So I've got both a paper certificate that says I've been immunized twice and the dates and the things. And then we also have an app. So I've got a code on my app on my phone.
Yeah.
And almost everybody uses that. So like when I travel, if I get on a flight, I'll bring both the paper version and the phone version just in case my phone doesn't work or whatever.
Sure.
You don't want to be denied entry. But just for around town, you just show your phone. There's an app. They can scan it in to verify that it's you. And that works for that. If you've had a test, these are also electronic, which is pretty cool. So I can go only for another month. Can I go get a free test? And there's like all over town. So I can go and get, and this is not the PCR test. This is the rapid antigen test. So I can just literally, I can make an appointment on my phone, or now you can walk in. It's literally a block away. I'm in and out in literally less than 5 minutes. And then about 10 minutes later, I get an email with, and they give you a password, like a PIN when you get your test. And then you enter it into your phone, and then you've got it on the app. You can print it out. There's also a PDF that you can print out, but you can also see it. There's a there's actually 3 apps, I think, now that are approved by the government that use the data security and protocols that are in place. So you can just show that you've been, that you've had either. And then I think for the test, if you recovered, you need to have a letter from the doctor, but there's an official form and it has to be stamped and signed and things like that. So.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then our school, I think, even when they start charging in the middle of October, because they want to encourage people. So, like, do you want to go to a restaurant, or you want to go to a club, a nightclub or something, or a concert, you have to have one of these. And so the testing has always been free. So that if you didn't want to get immunized, you just went and got a free test. But what's going to happen now is they're going to be, I think there'll be like $20 or $30. So that adds a significant cost if you're going out. So I think they're trying to use it as a financial incentive to get immunized. So we'll see if that works or not. And there's some waivers. If you have a medical condition that you can't get an immunization, you can still get your test for free. If you're under, I think it's under 12 here, you're not allowed to get immunized yet. Kids under 12 can still get it free. So they'll have the centers. And in fact, our school will have a testing center set up. We have one outside. And that will be free for students and staff and faculty. But you have to have an appointment. So you can't just say, I'll go with 5 minutes before class and do this. And I think you have to be tested within 48 hours or 72 hours. The test is good for. So there's still some risks, and we'll still wear masks, and we'll still keep some distance. But we're going to try to start in person. And see how it goes. So that's 2 weeks, and then regular lectures start 2 weeks after that. So I think the second week of October is when the rest of my classes will start.
And is there any immunizations, any places where immunizations are required to work, or like hospitals? Do they require all employees to be immunized, or how's that work?
So I think somebody was explaining this to me. It's very nuanced. So I believe that employers are not allowed to force you to be immunized, and they can't even ask you directly if you've been immunized.
Wow.
However, that said, I think for certain things they can still require immunization if it's necessary, I think. But it's it's more complicated here than it is in the U.S. But at least it's not. I don't think it's state by state. We have some federal rules. In effect.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but last week the president announced all companies with more than 100 employees have to have their employees immunized. So it's interesting that they put the onus on the companies to do this, and it's interesting how they're doing it, in that I think they came to the conclusion that the government cannot mandate that. So what they're doing is they're doing it through an emergency proclamation in OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Organization or something like that, right? Which makes all of sort of the workplace rules. So OSHA is doing this new regulation, emergency regulation, that says if you have 100 or more employees, all your employees need to be vaccinated. So that'll be interesting to see how that sort of rolls out here. And it's interesting that they're putting the onus on the companies, right? Not the state, or not the local government, or not the federal government, but they're putting that onus on companies. And there's been a fair number of companies prior to this who have said all of our employees have to be vaccinated. And most of those companies were ones where they have large portions of the population outwardly facing and interacting with the public, right? Like some of the airlines have made that proclamation.
Yeah.
Hospitals have made that proclamation.
I saw where Delta Airlines said, $200 a month more in insurance premiums?
That's right. If you're not. Yeah. So they're trying, different people are trying different things. So that's caused a fair amount of controversy here, as you can imagine.
Yeah. I just checked. German employers cannot require vaccination.
Yeah.
And they can't even ask them if they've been.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Vaccinated.
Wow. So did you?
And that was a court.
So let me ask you a question. Did you use Google Translate to ask that question, or did you type it in and read it in German?
Neither. I just did it in English, and it came up in English.
Oh, okay. Because you told me you were taking German lessons, so this was,
Yeah, I am. I've got my class in a couple hours here. I could have written that in German, though.
Oh, cool.
Those words I know enough. No problem.
Oh, very good. Very good.
But I was multitasking. So yeah. So like at our school, they offered free vaccinations, and we had a kind of our university doctor. You could get them from there. We got ours. We didn't do that, but people could do it that way. They're now, I think, even giving like paid time off to go get your vaccine. So they're trying to provide as many incentives as they can.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they have the same thing here. Part of this thing was paid time off to get your vaccine, et cetera.
Yeah, but we can require this 3G, that you have to have one of the three.
Yes.
And so the pressure is on, right? If you're not vaccinated and you have to get tested, you're paying for it on your own if your employer won't pay for it.
Yeah.
So it'll get expensive in a hurry.
It's interesting how there's so many incentives are economic, right? Mm-hmm. That's the real, whether it be, clean water, clean air, or getting a vaccine, we often get down to economic incentives to motivate companies or people to do things. So, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I saw on my timer we hit 30 minutes. Should we stop recording?
No, just keep recording. I want to do this but we could go to our normal conversation. I'm not trying to do a podcast here.
No, I know.
I'm just trying to record and see if anything comes out of it.
But I'm trying to avoid controversial subjects and highly personal ones as well, which is interesting.
Yes, as am I.
Right.
We're trying to walk that fine line. But we were going to talk a little bit, I think, about what next, maybe, right? Some other projects to kick around. So last time we had talked about a couple of things. One was this notion of, remember, sort of these special limited edition, I'll call them, or limited number of episodes, 10 episodes, 20 episodes, podcast, or a series on some particular topic. And one of them we talked about, we just happened to come up, was the guy from the Schenectady Mission. Remember, he was on our entrepreneurship podcast. Oh, by the way, I made some small edits to the titles of our podcast. Okay. For The Unconventional Path, I changed the title to Entrepreneurship via the Unconventional Path.
See if it right.
And for the sailing the East, I changed it to Sailing and Boating on the East.
Wow.
And the reason I did, I've been reading about how these various different podcast applications, search engines work. Most of them, some of them, a good percentage of them, just search on the title. Mm-hmm. So you gotta have, so I'm thinking, okay, I want to get the right words in the title, and that's the Unconventional Path doesn't have a good set of words about
nothing.
Right. And many of these applications have limits on how long the title can be.
So you don't game it.
Right. So you can't game it. So The Unconventional Path, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Stories and Ideas with Bela and Mike is way too long. So the only part that was getting searched was The Unconventional Path. So we'll see if that makes any difference in if there's an uptick or anything. But I just changed those over the weekend after I've been thinking about notions of search engines and sort of how they work. Like the Google podcast app will search actually the show notes for each episode. And, you know, if it has some words in it that the person types into the search engine, that specific episode will show up, as opposed to necessarily the whole the series. But not all podcast applications work that way. So anyway, if you have any other ideas for titles there, or better play on words or something, let me know, and I'm happy to modify it. No,
that's fine. It'll be interesting to see if there's any bump, right? The data should be clear.
Right. Well, data's often not clear.
Right, but in this case, if there's a spike, either way, well, you know what date you made the change, right?
Exactly.
So,
right. We're seeing uptick.
We just need to remember to probably change the intro, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, for the sailing one, we'll change the intro to sailing.
Right.
And I've been thinking about sort of actually trimming up the intro, that we have enough episodes out there with hi, this is Bela, I'm the sailor, blah blah blah.
Yeah, let's just kill it. Right?
Just dive right in.
Yep.
You know,
I think that's fine.
I've been thinking about that as well. So anyway, we had talked about this limited series of episodes. And the one we sort of kicked around as an example was Mike Sakosha, who runs that Schenectady mission, right? And this notion of, tips and guidance and lessons learned, kind of go do an extended interview with him, and maybe actually have him as a guest on multiple shows and interview him about, hey, how do you propagate this, etc. Things like that. So that was sort of one thing we kicked around. The other thing we kicked around was this notion of, did you ever wonder, how are eyeglasses made, or, how do they work, or mozzarella cheese, sticking with the food theme, etc. There are several podcasts that are sort of like that, and YouTube channels. There's like how's it made?
How's it made?
Yeah.
Yep.
And things you should know, or did you know? There's a couple of those types of things out there already. Some in YouTube channels, some in regular highly produced TV shows, and others in podcast. So we had talked about trying something different. It doesn't necessarily have to be a podcast that we do together, as we've talked. And we talked about doing some book or some educational material that maybe we could get students to use. But those are all crowded spaces and stuff. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do them. Yep. They're just crowded spaces.
Well, where's the blue ocean? Right.
Right. Do we want the blue ocean or the desert? I'm not sure.
Right. I think we want the blue ocean. I think we need to keep thinking.
Yeah.
Because it would be great to carve out some space, We should be able to do this. We're both pretty creative.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder if there's something in this notion of thinking about teaching and when you start thinking about going remotely, or even some hybrid thing, it totally changes the potential business model. It totally changes. What were those things called that were really popular 5 years ago? Massive online.
Oh, MOOCs.
MOOCs,
yeah,
right?
MOOCs. Yeah.
And they've some of that stuff has faded away, but but it totally changes sort of the accessibility to education for people. And I remember that was one of the big things with MOOCs, was this notion of accessibility. All you needed was a cell phone and a reasonable data connection, and now you have access. You don't have to come to a physical place. And I wonder if that has ramifications beyond education. right? Are there other sort of, and I don't mean working remotely, right? I mean, that's the simple piece of it. But are there other things that we do that currently, I mean, like religious services, right? Traditionally, religious services are you go to some physical location. And the pandemic has actually forced some various different religious organizations to figure out a different model because you couldn't go to the physical location. But I wonder if there's other examples of that kind of stuff where this, as the technology continues to march forward, and society's acceptance of doing some of these things remotely becomes more pervasive, so that some of these things will change and new businesses will pop up, right? There will be new opportunities. I don't know the answer to that, but that's sort of what's one of the things that's rattling around in my brain.
I like that. I mean, I think we could even combine these two. So this is our focus, and we look at 10 ideas, right? And we talk to 10 people related to kind of the new reality of work, right? Or the new reality of industry.
Yeah.
I think that might be cool. I think let's brainstorm on that a little bit because it's new, right? It's fair. I mean, there's other people doing it, and I've read some stuff, but right. I think if we came up with a list of 10 ideas and just let's plan it as a limited series and see, you can always do part 2, right? If, oh my gosh, it hits, right?
Right.
But if we start, we say, here's the 10 trends that you and I, maybe we talk to 3 or 4 people and we identify, we do like a little pre-interview, right? And maybe we can use some of those bits, right? But maybe we talk to 3 or 4 people in some different fields and we kind of ask them to look around the corner and see what's coming. And we can talk about what that might look like and what the strengths and weaknesses are, the trade-offs. Maybe we kind of come up with a formula where we explore and we kind of analyze the trend, right? And what does it mean, for the listener?
Right.
Would that work?
I don't know. Something to kick around.
Yeah. And the other thing that might be fun to try, honestly, is okay. So let's say we do a podcast, right? And we do 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then once those 10 episodes are done, we use Descript or something to transcribe them. And then we try to turn it into a little one of these short business books.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like 10 things you need to know about the future of work. Right? And we see if we can get a bite from a publisher, or we just self-publish it on Amazon and see if anybody buys it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think
right, with a little editing.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's something there. I'm not sure what it is yet, but I think there's a nugget of something there.
Totally. I got to roll in a couple minutes, but could you write a 1-page up like of that, or 2 pages, and then I can kind of build on that when I've got a little more brain power.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks, on and off, mostly on the road. And so I'll definitely have some time to think, like some good thinking time.
Yeah.
So I can flesh this out. But I'm a little scrambled at the moment because I'm leaving tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock after my dentist appointment.
Okay. I'm just writing a couple things down.
Yeah. And you've got the recording to go back to, too.
Yes.
Which is sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I like that as a working model for until we meet again. Let's kind of chase down that idea and sketch out a couple pictures of what that might look like.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think it's new and unique and, right, it's right up our alley, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be super conversational.
Because, yeah, I think...
Right, we ask more questions than we answer. Kind of.
Right. Because, right, this could be like an inflection point in sort of how we do things as a society.
That might be in part of the name.
Right.
Right? Future something, colon, the inflection point, Reflection and inflection. Looking into the future with Bela and Mike.
Yes.
I don't know.
Gazing into the future.
Longingly. Okay, I better get my butt in gear, but this was good. Do you want me to throw this recording?
Yes, please
somewhere?
do. I gotta let me make a quick folder for it. I'll just make it in the
in Google Drive.
in the Google Drive. I'll do it under. Hang on here. Let me think of where to do this. We got Mike and Bela Media Project. I think there's new podcast ideas. How about we put it into there? There's a folder that already exists, and just dump it in there. There's only 2 things in there.
Yep.
Just dump it into there as a audio file, and I'll know it's there.
Awesome. And then when are you leaving for your trip?
I'm leaving tomorrow.
For your boat?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
And
so maybe we'll deal with this next week.
Yeah.
But now that you got the notes, that's fine, and I'll do some thinking.
Yeah, but you'll still upload this, right?
I'll upload it as soon as I'm done with my next thing.
Perfect. So next week, I'm 90% sure we'll be back by Tuesday. If not, I'll let you know, and we'll move it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
No, because Tuesday.
Or did you have to move?
We got to move.
You got to move it anyway.
Yeah, we got to move because. Yeah, I'll be driving, so I can do it I can do it Wednesday or Thursday. If we do it Thursday, I got to do it a little later. But
let's move it to Wednesday.
Well, let's see how it goes. Why don't you just let me know when you're back?
Okay.
And then I'll be pretty flexible. So.
Well, I'll definitely be back by Wednesday. So
okay.
if you want to just move it to Wednesday or even Thursday's fine.
I'll move it to I'll move it to Wednesday for now.
Yeah.
And then we'll see.
That works. Perfect.
Okay, it's moved.
Okay. Sounds good, Mike.
All right, cool. Have a good trip. Safe sailing.
Yep, thanks. Always great to see you. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Yep, talk to you. Bye.
Well, that was our new experimental episode. We hope you liked it. Thanks for listening. And again, we love to hear from you and let us know how you like this particular episode and this sort of particular format. These are very easy for Mike and I to do because, like I said, most of the times whenever we record an episode, we typically have a 15 to 30-minute conversation between the two of us. So if you liked it, let us know. You can reach out to us at bela.and.mike@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. So until next time, take care.